A message to my dear brother with Black Patriarch. Now, before I get started here, I also want to say this, that I am not one to push and promote slaves and slaves mentality. When I say and talk about our people and our people descending from those who were enslaved, I do not say DOS, I say DOE, descendants of the enslaved. You did not enslave yourself. You were not born with a slave's mentality. The enslavement happened and was carried out upon you by others. You did not do it to yourself. So DOE. So let's get that straight right now. That is where I come from. Descendants of the enslaved, not the descendants of slaves. Now, that also comes from we who are involved in Pan-Africanism. And this is a response to at least a small part of your video that was entitled "The Replacement of Black Americans Continues." Now, I was on O'Shea Jackson's show yesterday, and I had not seen or even heard of this program that Black Patriarch had produced. So this morning, another person sent me a link to that, and I decided that I would take a look at the video. Now, the video, it's about 45 minutes, and 42 minutes. My time is precious, so I didn't go through all of the video, but I did go through the first parts of it just to see what was being said. And my comments are going to be based upon the first few minutes of the video. And in the first few minutes of the video, well, let me say it like this. It is good that some research was done. However, what is not good is that thorough analysis was not done. So I'm going to do that a little bit. I'm going to take it to the next level so that you properly understand things. Too often African Americans linger behind because you have voices that speak, and those voices are not presenting a critical analysis, a very good analysis of what they are speaking about. And that is exactly what I'm going to do here, is I'm going to give you a more thorough analysis. And I'll start with this. They stated in the video there were 2.1 million African immigrants living in the United States in 2015, up from 881,000 in 2000. Now, that is a 15-year period. Now, listen, that's a fact right there. But here is the important analysis. Here is the critical analysis. Now, some people are not very good at mathematics, but mathematics is very, very important, because when you start throwing numbers around, okay, you need to know what you're talking about. You need to know how to properly evaluate and analyze the numbers that you're throwing around. Now, let's look at this. Let's put this in context. That would mean that from the year 2000 until the year 2015, which is a 15-year period, there was, for African immigrants entering into the United States, their numbers would have been around 1.2 million. Exactly 1,219,000 over a 15-year period. Now, that would average out on and over the 15-year period to 81,266 immigrants from Africa, various African countries. You know, there are 54 African countries. Africa has nearly 1.2 billion people who came into the United States. Okay. Now, some of you would say, oh my God, T. West, that 81,266 is a very large number. No, No, it isn't. Let's bring some context to it. Every month in this country, nearly 1 million illegal immigrants enter into the United States. Every month. Okay? Now, that means that over a year, 1 year period, you have around about 1 million entering into the United States from Hispanic countries. Now, you have some African Americans who want to place the focus on other black immigrant groups coming into the United States. Well, historically, the United States has prohibited black immigrants from other countries coming into the United States. That has been prohibited. But they would bring them in from Europe and other countries, but not Africa. All right. Now, let's go ahead on. Now, you're seeing this on the screen. The numbers that I just presented to you, you see it on the screen. You see the numbers. Okay? I'm explaining this. You're looking at me face to face. Looking at you. I'm looking at you. You're looking at me. Look in my eyes. You see the numbers. Okay? Now, let's go on to the next point that was made. The next point was that Africans are the fastest growing segment of black immigrant population. And then he went on to say, increasing by 137% from 2000, the year 2000, until the year 2013. Now, listen. Africans are the fastest growing segment of black immigrant population. Well, okay. Where are the other black immigrants going to come from? Where? Where are they coming from? Many of those that he's saying are African immigrants. They are immigrants from the UK who immigrated to the UK from Africa. They are immigrants from other countries that originally they came from Africa. They immigrated into other countries and then they came on into the United States. And then you have some who directly immigrate directly here into the United States. Now, where are you going to get the other blacks from? Well, we could talk about the Caribbean. We could talk about Brazil and some of the other places. We could talk about those places. But let me tell you this. Here's a historical fact. And I talked about this in a previous video of the past. At one point in time, there were far more blacks enslaved in Jamaica than there were, or in the Caribbean. Let's just say the Caribbean. Than there were in the United States of America. However, today, the United States of America have more blacks than the Caribbean. Okay? And that number changed a long, long time ago, long before the United States government was allowing an increasing number of blacks to immigrate into the United States. Now, why did that number change? Because over the centuries, blacks from the islands, from the Caribbean islands, have been immigrating into the United States. In fact, many of the African Americans who are here today are descendants of many of those who immigrated in from the Caribbean. Now, you have blacks, as I said before, who try to divide blacks from other blacks. They're attempting to do these things, and there are various reasons, as I stated, a couple of reasons on O'Shea's program as to why they're doing this. And it's not good. It's not good at all. Coming from both sides, African Americans as well as those African immigrants. Now, also, the gentleman, as his program was starting, he showed some faces of people who are in public positions. He showed Ilhan Omar, who is a Somali. She came to the United States as a refugee. She won a congressional seat out of Minnesota, and her face was shown. He showed Sheila Jackson Lee, and her ancestry comes out of Jamaica. Okay, and I have no problem with these people holding political office. No problem at all. None. No envy, no jealousy with that. And it should not exist with any of you either. What should be important is if those individuals are promoting your issues that are important to African Americans. And if they're not, if they're supporting and pushing and promoting issues that are not important for you, and more importantly, that are against you, then you should have a problem. Okay? You've got African American congressmen and congresswomen who are not out there pushing and promoting your agenda. Now look at the African American national political agenda, telling you what we want, what we demand, who we are, what we stand for. Look at it. Study that. Now this 137% increase over a number of years. We're talking about a 13-year period. Now, what was the starting number? If you start from zero and you increase 113%, that's not a large number. That's mathematics. You need to understand mathematics. So there's nothing solid right there with that. You have blacks in other countries, okay? And we're talking about Brazil, we're talking about Mexico and Central American countries, okay? But where are they coming from? Many of them are coming from Africa. Now, why are they coming from Africa? Many of them are coming here because they are among the well-educated class. Many of them, okay? Some of them come from very elite families. They come here to the United States. But are we talking about very large numbers? No. Comparatively, no. We're not talking large numbers. But let's move on here to the next point that was made. The next point that was stated was, for those who did not get it, the African population grows faster than the native black Americans. Aha, okay. Well, let's break that down, okay? All right? You can't just throw words up there without explanations. Okay, now, Africans on the continent, for years, they've had an average of 5 children. And prior to the 1970s, African Americans on average had around about at least 5 children. I come from a large family, 13. My mother came from an even larger family, 21. Okay, in that family. Okay, now, and that was not that was a characteristic of many African American families in this country up until the 1970s and going forward. So many of you all, I'm talking about African Americans. I'm talking to you now. Listen to me. Listen to me. You can't piss and holler about Africans' birth rate being faster than African Americans in this country if you all are going out there getting hysterectomies. You all are going out there getting abortions. Some of you men are saying to these women that your girlfriends and your wives, I don't want any children. Do not have any children. If you have any children, if you get pregnant, you better abort. You better be on the pill. Okay? All right? That is largely your fault if you're not producing. Your fault. So, but as Africans, immigrants come here over the next generation, they become more Americanized. They become more like the status quo in America. They start doing some of the same things that African Americans are doing, abortions and other things. You'll start seeing them take on those characteristics. And when you look at the statistics, you will see that. You will see that their marriage statistics will begin to mirror that more and more of African Americans. Now, is that a good thing? In many aspects, no, it is not a good thing. So what you should look at and what you should adopt are the positive things of other ethnic groups, not the negative things. Now, some of the African immigrants, they are adopting some of the negative things that have become somewhat commonplace among African Americans. So let's just call it what it is. So when we talk about African populations growing faster than the native black Americans, you better point the finger at yourself. You'd better point the finger and ask yourself, okay, what am I doing that is not the best thing for me to do? What can I do better? You'd better do that. Okay, no excuses. No excuses. Okay, let's move on to the next point here. Now, the next point that was made was this. And the reason why so many black Americans have refused to address this issue for so long is due to Pan-Africanism. That is just juvenile. That's juvenile. Has nothing to do with Pan-Africanism. Nothing. You have to address what I just addressed. You have to address why is it that you're not having children? Why is that? Why is it? Now, I don't encourage you to have children if you are not employed. I'm not encouraging that, because children is a responsibility. There's a responsibility right there. But at the same time, I do not accept those of you who say that children are a liability. That is what was taught in colleges and universities over the last several years, since the 1970s that I know of. I mean, that's what I was taught. When I was in college, that's what I heard. Okay, children are a liability. And that's not the case. Children are an asset, and you must see them as an asset and treat them as an asset, because someday you're going to be old. Okay? You're going to be old, and you might not be able to take care of yourself. You might not be able to provide everything that you need for yourself. You're going to need somebody, just like you needed somebody the day that you were born. You needed someone. So all of this talk about children being a liability, throw that mess out the window. Throw it out the window. So anyway, those were just a few points that I wanted to bring forward in just the first few minutes of the video. In fact, within the first 4 minutes of the video. Okay. And this video from Black Patriarch is literally 42 minutes long. And I don't have time to go through all that. But if I did, I would cut and dice that totally. Okay. All right. But just in the first few minutes, I'm showing you where it's nonsense. I mean, blaming it on Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism does not have a damn thing to do with it. Not a thing. Now, on O'Shea's program yesterday, it would have been better if O'Shea had done what I just did right here as you looking at the words on the screen. If he had brought those words up, presented them, and then asked me to comment exactly on those things. And maybe he did in a generalized way. But I like going through things with a fine-tooth comb. So blaming it on Pan-Africanism is a bunch of nonsense. That's not the case. You have African Americans, some of you who are not doing what you need to do, and you know it, and you want to make an excuse for it. You want to blame others for it, and it's time out for that mess. You cannot do that any longer. Some of you must do better. You must do better. Drop the drugs, okay? Leave the dope alone. Leave the alcohol alone, okay? All right? The book of Joel, 3rd chapter. You have sold a boy as a harlot, as a prostitute, so that you may drink. This is what some of the African chiefs were doing in order to get rum from the Europeans. And then they would sell you, your ancestors, into slavery for such things, to get drunk, okay? And you have the pale-skinned homosexuals wanting the boy for sex, black boys for sex, black girls for sex. This is the case. So it is very, very important. I appreciate Black Patriarch for your attempt at dealing with this. I appreciate it because it provided me with an opportunity to really break it down and show it like it really, really is. Because it is important for people to understand the way that it really is. And that is the only way that you can really, really, really move forward and continue to move forward. You cannot move forward with just generalizations. You need to understand the roots of things. You need to understand the basis of things. But when you understand that, then you can manipulate properly. And that's what, when people say, I've got a PhD in this, a PhD in that, these are people who educationally are supposed to be masters at that particular topic, masters at that particular discipline. So let's deal with it from a overall perspective by understanding the roots, understanding what is underneath. Now, I may come back with a part 2 of this. I may, but I'm just saying that the beginning, first few minutes of the video is telling me that what comes later in the video is going to be similar. This is T West with AfriSynergy News.